Here's the intro. Hello people watching this video, welcome to Danny's Review Show, where I don't really have a consistent line after saying the name of the show. For the game I want to talk about today, I would go over my history with Sonic, but I already did a whole video, assuming it's still up, about my history with the franchise. So I'll just talk briefly about my history with this game. Sometime before Christmas of 2004, which is my excuse to talk about this in December, I saw this game, Sonic Mega Collection Plus, on PS2. At that point, I'd only heard about the Genesis games, but never actually played them until I got this collection. And then Christmas of that year, I ended up getting a GameCube with a couple of Sonic games, and one of those being the original Mega Collection, so that was another way. If you want to know what that one's like, the original, then just look it up on my Just Some Gameplay channel, again assuming it's still up, or just look it up anywhere online, I'm sure you'll find at least one clip. Anyway, to make a long story short, I've had this game on the PS2, the same copy, for over a decade and a half. Unfortunately, it's gone through some hard times and age and doesn't quite work the same anymore. So today, instead I'll be taking a look at the Xbox version, which is the same game, just with different button names. Sega! And that was the first time I heard that. My lord, this is so nostalgic. For a game with nostalgic games in it. First, let's take a look at the menus and extras. There is so much to unpack here. Every menu has an incredible background. When you look at the games, they show off the gameplay in the background. For the ones that are unlocked, of course. Yeah, that's a thing. There's even a menu for the manuals for the games. Not as great as getting the physical books, but hey, this is still pretty cool. Now the extras menu is the second coolest thing about this collection, after the games themselves. You can look at so many of the covers from Sonic Archie comics. I'm not for sure, but I think they might have included every cover up to whenever they finished developing this part of the game. There's even a whole comic here, Sonic the Hedgehog First. It's a real comic, but if you can't find it or it's too expensive, then SMCP has you covered. Again, it's not the same as having the real comic, but it's a nice alternative. There are illustrations and info on the characters in this game, which yes, you can look up those and much more on the internet, but can you look up storyboards and in-production movies and the final versions of those movies online? Yeah, more than likely you can. But if you have no internet, it's no problem, because you have SMCP, assuming you have electricity, and a TV. And an Xbox or PS2, and the game, and the right cable, you know what I mean. This game just has so much to it. So if you're looking for a good set of, there's still games to talk about. Starting off, we have the original Sonic the Hedgehog. I won't take too long on this, considering there are hundreds of other reviews of this game, including myself through my first episode of Audio Half Reviews. Assuming that's still. I guess in addition to talking about the game, I'll also talk about some of the features you can use when playing these games. So the original Sonic was a fine start to the series. Starting off in Overused Zone, aka Green Hill Zone, we have a pretty good start to the game. It's bright and colorful and was probably invented by those who like checkers. After getting through the level with 50 rings, you can jump in this giant ring to take you to the special stage. These are where you get the emeralds. This is also where I decided to use a save state. This feature wasn't present in the original Mega Collection on GameCube, but I'm so glad it's here because this is a godsend feature. For these unnecessarily difficult games, this is a really nice, don't get your pants in a wad because this is an optional feature. We have gotten better versions of this later on, like the rewind feature in games like Sega Genesis Classics, but this one is still nice. Oh yeah, I was talking about Sonic 1. While starting off in the original Sonic is good, it kinda goes downhill in the next zone. Marble Zone, while not bad in and of itself, is really not a good set of levels for Sonic. You're encouraged to go fast, but these levels are usually anything but. There are various zones after this that let you go faster, but then there are those that don't. Basically, Sonic 1 feels like the first game. It's okay, but not really great. The next game is obviously Sonic 2. The next game is considered by many to be the greatest Sonic game ever made, next to games like Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and in more recent years, Sonic Mania. Now what do I think of this game? I think it's good. Just good. I don't think it's this god-tier game like so many act like it is, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy playing it at all. There are just flaws in the game that get overlooked where in other Sonic games they wouldn't. However, most of my issues come from when trying to fully complete the game and the fact that there's no save data. Of course, this is assuming that you're not playing it on something that has the option to save it. Anyway, back to the game. The special stages suck in this game. Not that Sonic 1's special stages didn't suck, but Sonic 2's is really not fun to do, especially the later ones. And this is the one that has gotten newer versions in later games, and I cannot understand why. Well, actually I do know why. It's because everyone likes to praise this game to the point of getting on their knees and suck. But when you're playing this game casually, like not trying to get all the emeralds and just trying your best to get to the end of the game, it's actually pretty enjoyable. Basically, playing it like it's an arcade game makes it a little better for me. I still don't think it's the best Sonic game, even when viewing it like that, but it's still one I come back to time to time. So yeah, overall, I like it, I just don't love it. Next up is my favorite Sonic game out of the Genesis games, Sonic 3. Well, part 1 of my favorite, but you know where I'll be going with that. For all 10 of you who like Sonic but don't know about this, Sonic 3 was so big they had to separate it into 2 different games. Starting with the first part, Sonic 3 introduces us to Idris Elba, Knuckles. This game is immediately better given the way you get to the special stages, and the special stages don't suck as much. Now just because Sonic 3 is my favorite Sonic Genesis game, that doesn't mean I think it's perfect. There are some issues with the game, like how it really does feel incomplete. Not from glitches, but from the fact that it was cut in half. It's not that short, but it can feel kind of short without the next part. But there is a lot to like here, like how the next act starts right where Act 1 ended. Not to mention the in-game cutscenes, which were kind of advanced for the time. So yeah, Sonic 3 is a pretty good, just incomplete game. The next game is the very next part of Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles. There's not too much to say about this one that's different from Sonic 3, considering this is basically Sonic 3 Part 2, but I'll say a little bit. The lock-on cartridge was an interesting idea. If you have the right games, you can play... well, I think I'll save those for later. Anyway, the game on its own still feels incomplete. Interestingly, this one doesn't have a save feature, unlike Sonic 3. But I suppose they figured it would be redundant since this is meant to connect to Sonic 3, which carries over the save data. Anyway, it is pretty cool to be able to use Knuckles for the first time. So while Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles separated are fine, the part that makes it a fantastic full package is putting them together. The games together can feel a bit lengthy, but the save data helps with that. Next game we'll be looking at as I babble is Sonic 3D Blast, aka Isometric Sonic Flicky Crossover Extravaganza. Welcome to the future. Apparently, this was the direction Sonic 3 was originally going to go in, having an isometric view. Thank God that didn't happen. Sonic 3D Blast really isn't a bad game, it's just... okay. The game, kind of like I said, is a mix between Sonic and the old game Flicky, just from an isometric view. The way it's like Sonic is... well, just look at it. The very Sonic-looking environments, enemies, etc. The Flicky feel comes from the objective of the game, and the fact that they're Flickies. You have to rescue the Flickies and reach the goal rings. Each level has at least 2 of these. I would have showed off a special stage, but I couldn't find Tails or Knuckles anywhere, and I didn't really want to spend too much time on this game. Basically, this version's special stage is at a weird angle, but it's not too bad, and the Saturn version, of course, copies the Sonic 2 special stages, just a bit better because it's actual 3D. Back to the game itself, obviously the third act of these stages are the boss stages. Overall, this game does feel like they just wanted to have something on the Genesis for those who weren't getting a Saturn yet. But it could have been a lot worse, and it can be somewhat fun to play. The next game is Sonic Spinball, or Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball if you want to get technical about it. This game is a very mixed bag for me. It's overall a pinball game, of course, but you can move Sonic a little bit while pinballing, but it's just very frustrating to deal with. I know Sonic rolling up into a ball is a great opportunity for games like Pinball, But honestly, I'm not a big fan of when Sonic has pinball physics in any of these games. I just hate the feeling of hardly being in control of the character, and this game is centered on that. It is a very interesting take on a pinball game, but it's just not executed well. I will say the music tracks are pretty good, especially the boss theme. Although there is also the options music. What do you mean your ears are bleeding? But overall the soundtrack is fine. The game overall is kinda meh. Next up is Pollo, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. The setting for the game was actually based on the adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog's world. Also, Sonic Spinball's world is kind of based on the Sonic Sat AM's world. 1993 was a big but different year for Sonic. Anyway, if you like Pollo, then you'll most likely enjoy this game as well. I mean, this is just the American version of Pollo, just with Sonic characters. It plays fine, and it can be quite addicting. There are a few different modes here to occupy your time, including a multiplayer mode. Not really too much for me to say, it's Pollo with Dr. Robotnik and his minions. Definitely a game I'd recommend. Let's take a little break from the Genesis games for a little while and move on to the Game Gear games. These were not in the original Mega Collection, so that's partially why they put Plus on this one. We'll start things off with the Game Gear version of Sonic 1. Well, poor Sonic had to sacrifice his nose to get onto the Game Gear. It starts off the same, you start in Green Hill Zone, but the level design is quite different. This is what is referred to as 8-bit Sonic because this game is an 8-bit. You learn something new every day. This game is alright on Game Gear, it just kinda has that screen crunch problem. It's a bit too zoomed in, so seeing upcoming enemies and hazards is kind of a problem. One thing I will say about this version is at least Green Hill Zone is one of the only zones it shares with the Genesis version. The very next zone is Bridge Zone, which is a lot better than Marble Zone, until you get to the auto-scrolling level. The special stages this time are better-ish. Overall, the game is fine, and at the time it was a decent game for on the go. But if you want the better 8-bit Sonic 1 experience, get the Master System version. It doesn't have that screen crunch problem. Next game on the list is Sonic Labyrinth. Let me put it this way, this should not have been a Sonic game. Sonic, going at turtleneck speeds there. There is a reason in the plot why Sonic is going so slow, but still, it's Sonic. You do go fast with the ball move, but it's got that terrible pinball feeling. Even if Sonic's speed was normal in this game, it wouldn't exactly save it. The next game is Sonic Drift, where, as far as I know of, this is the only official way you can play this game in North America, as this game was only released in Japan originally. You know those old racing games like Pole Position where you're encouraged to go fast, but if you go too fast and there's a drift coming up, it's nearly impossible to maintain your speed and you go off the road and you might possibly crash? Well, that's basically Sonic Drift. You can only use 4 characters, Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Robotnik. But where the game lacks characters, it does make up for in how many tracks there are. Not that there's a ton, but there's a decent amount for a Game Gear game. Unfortunately, it really doesn't save the game though. Unless you like the old pole position games, you probably won't like this one. Unless you're a hardcore collector, this is not worth trying to get on real hardware. The next game is Sonic Chaos, or Sonic the Hedgehog Chaos if you want to get technical about it. This game is actually not too bad. It's not great, and it still has that screen crunch issue, but it's still decent. It took the Sonic gameplay we knew up to that point and gave it kind of a twist with the power-ups. It's almost like the Super Mario Land of the Sonic Game Gear games in a way. And hey, you even get to use Tails for the first time on Game Gear in North America. Though like Sonic 1 on Game Gear, I would recommend the Master System version more, but for a portable version, this is decent. The next game is Sonic Blast, non-3D edition. This one is kind of ugly looking. Obviously, this time around, the graphics are meant to look like Sonic 3D Blast, just on a 2D plane. This game is, as James Rolfe put it, just a poor man's version of Sonic. I mean, there really isn't that much to say about this one. It's a Game Gear Sonic game with 3D Blast graphics and Knuckles as another playable character. The gameplay itself really isn't that bad, it's just the graphics and the performance. The level design is also kind of bland and sometimes frustrating. I wouldn't really recommend this one as much. It's better than Sonic Labyrinth, but it's not exactly hard to be better than that one anyway. It is kind of strange how Sonic Labyrinth has 2D graphics but has the isometric gameplay, whereas with Sonic Blast, whose basically console version has the isometric gameplay as well, is a side-scroller. Anyway, next up is the Game Gear version of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Well, this is one where there's almost nothing new to say about it, it's just Mean Bean Machine on the go. I mean, obviously the graphics and sound are downgraded from the Genesis version, but given this is still the same Puyo Puyo gameplay, it's just as fun. The only major difference other than having to have two systems and I imagine 2 copies of the game for multiplayer is the puzzle mode. You can solve up to 30 different puzzles using the Puyo gameplay, which is fun. While there really wasn't much to say about this version, that doesn't at all mean it's bad. It's a pretty fun portable experience. Now that we're done with the Game Gear games, let's head back to the Genesis to talk about the unlockable games. To unlock most of these, you must play certain games, 20 to 30 times each. One of them you have to play the Genesis games 50 times. There is an alternative to 2 of them, but we'll get to those later. Still though, what the hell were they thinking with that? As tedious as this is, you don't actually have to play them 20 to 30 times each, at least not in the way you'd think. You can start up the game, and then once it gets to the Sega logo, you can just exit out and it'll count as playing it. So yes, it's still tedious, but at least it goes by faster than actually having to play the games. Anyway, the first unlockable game, at least in terms of where it's listed, is Blue Sphere. Blue Sphere is what happens when you put Sonic 1 in Sonic & Knuckles. I don't care how weird that sounds, I'm going with it. Pretty sure there's supposed to be something going on here. Wait, have I been trolled? You mean to tell me that they wasted their time filling a slot with this joke when they could have put more effort into having— oh, here we go. Yeah, for some odd reason to play Blue Sphere you have to hit a few buttons at the same time to get it started. Ah well, at least we're here. And yes, this whole game is just a Sonic 3 special stage gameplay. In fact, it's a massive collection of special stages. Seriously, there are so many levels, I'm pretty sure this thing is randomly generated. But anyway, not much else to say. It's just the Sonic 3 special stages where you can use Sonic or Knuckles. The next unlockable is Knuckles and Sonic 2. This, of course, is what happens when you put Sonic 2 in Sonic and Knuckles. I think you know what I'm about to say. There's not much to say. It's just Sonic 2, but you use Knuckles instead of Sonic or Tails. It is pretty fun that way, there's just nothing else new to talk about. Next up is the full package of my favorite Sonic Genesis game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Well, here it is, the whole game. Again, not going to be saying much. This time around you can start out Sonic 3 as Knuckles, or just play the whole game as Sonic and Tails, or just Tails. The choice is yours. If I didn't already talk more about these games earlier, I'd say more, but we have a few more games to talk about, so I'll just say this. This game is awesome overall. Now the last 4 games I'll be talking about are actually not Sonic games. The first non-Sonic game on the list is Flicky. Flicky actually came out just a couple of months before the original Sonic game on Genesis. So really, Sonic 3D Blast was kind of a 5th anniversary celebration for both Sonic and Flicky. Anyway, Flicky is set up like an arcade game. Probably because it was originally an arcade game that was released in 1984. So it's much older than Sonic. Anyway, the game is simple to learn. Just get all the little chicks into the elevator door without running into one of the enemies. It does get challenging, but it's partially because this game is very slippery. Like, are all the floors in the game made of ice? Were they recently mopped? But overall, it's fine. For a few minutes. It does get old pretty quickly, given that while the backgrounds and level designs change over time, the music is the same through all the normal levels, at least as far as I've gotten. There are bonus stages that have different music, but even then it's still the same for each bonus stage. For 1984, I'm sure this was fun, and in 1991, it was probably cool to have at home. But for 2002 or 2004 to 2021, it's really not that great. Next game is Rystar. Now this is a unique game. For the most part, it's a platformer. But what makes this different is the inclusion of Rystar's stretchy werehog arms. It's not a perfect mechanic, but it can be pretty fun. You swing around on things or grab various enemies, collectibles, and other things. The graphics and art style for the game is gorgeous. This was one of the last in-house Sega games to be developed for the Genesis, and honestly it's a pretty good game to end on, in terms of Sega developed games. Now the next two games can be unlocked in two different ways. Starting off the last two, we have the Ooze. One way to unlock this game is to have almost every other game unlocked. The other way is to have Sonic Heroes save data. So to save yourself a long time, just get Sonic Heroes and save it. It's relatively cheap these days on PS2 and Xbox, so it shouldn't be too bad to get it that way. The Ooze is quite a weird game, and not in the best way. You're this scientist named Dr. Daniel Kane. Who would have a name like Daniel? Long story short, Dr. Kane gets turned into the Ooze trademark, and he swears revenge on the guys who made him that way. The gameplay is interesting at first. You just blob around attacking enemies with your ooziness and collect DNA stuff. However, the game quickly becomes boring when you don't know where to go, and honestly, sometimes you get hurt by things that you really don't see coming all the time. After the second or third level, I was already done playing. At first, I thought this game was interesting enough for me to say it's underrated, and I had wished it was re-released on more things. But after playing it again, I can see why it didn't get the best reviews, even from back then. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this one. It's not the worst Genesis game I've played, but still. One more thing I'd like to add before I stop talking about the Ooze is that I think this version wasn't ported very well. It looks like it had some graphical issues because when playing the game on Genesis, the ground isn't black, it's supposed to be mainly brown. Not that it matters too much, given that the game isn't that great to begin with. And the last game we'll be looking at today is Comix Zone, or Comix Zone. At first, I thought one of the options to unlock this game was having to play every single Genesis game 50 times each, which would have been a nightmare. But then I realized it meant that you had to play a Genesis game in general 50 times altogether. So you could play Sonic 1 10 times, Flicky 20 times, and Rystar 20 times if you wanted to. But that still takes a bit too long, so having the Sonic Heroes save data route is still the better and much faster option. Now on to the game. Comix Zone is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game. It's pretty interesting how you go through sections of levels as panels in a comic book. The game can get pretty tough though, so be prepared for that. For the time, and even today, it looks pretty good for a Genesis game. This one is definitely better than the Ooze and Flicky when comparing the non-Sonic games in SMCP. So, I would recommend Comix Zone if you can handle the difficulty. And that was Sonic Mega Collection Plus and all the games in it. Overall, it's a great collection of games and extras. This really makes me miss the days of the compilation games on the 6th and 7th gen game consoles. Anyway, if you're a Genesis and or Game Gear Sonic fan, you should definitely check this game out. It's usually relatively cheap these days. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays and etc. Like this video if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more of these or any other types I make, and thanks for watching.